Hello and good evening to yet another live from Hitbullseye. I am Sheetal, your verbal teacher here at Hitbullseye, and today, in the continuation of the same series that I started last week on Tuesday, I am going to talk about reading comprehension, some important question types today. So everyone who is preparing for the MBA entrance exams must be aware that reading comprehension covers up almost 60 to 66% of the verbal section of MBA entrance exams, especially the CAT exam. Yes, the big fish that we are all aiming. So it's important that we know what type of questions can come in the CAT exam and how to deal with those questions. Last time I discussed the main idea question with you through some examples. Today I will be discussing some more question types with you. After getting the fundamental knowledge of how to approach the passages and how to deal with difficult questions, practice enough questions and you will definitely ace in that RC section of the paper. So without any further ado, let's get into the live. So I am just going to discuss some of the question types. Though there can be, difficult statements and different sentences in the question, but more or less questions, they revolve around these types only, these 6 types. Let us see them one by one and then do a practice passage. Everyone who's already live, I want you all to take your time and try to answer those questions as well. So let us understand what is the main idea of the passage. This is one of the most important questions because see, from the main idea, the other questions also stem. I'll tell you how. So first of all, you can say main idea is the primary concern or the gist of the passage. Though there are 3 paragraphs, though the passage is very lengthy, but what is the focus point the author is trying to convince us for? What is the author trying to say by giving us so many examples and facts and so many information in the passage? So first thing, you need to scan the whole paragraph and the passage and skim it, which means churn out the important information from it. What is he trying to stress upon? So the primary concern or the gist of the passage that can justify the whole passage is known as the main idea of the passage. From this stems the CR questions. You can see here. CR stands for critical reasoning type of question. These are not direct question and they would need you to understand the gist of the passage so that you can answer questions like which of the following option supports the author's idea? Which of the following option undermines or weakens the author's idea or contradicts the author's idea? How will you select one option if you do not know what is the idea there? What is that main idea author is stressing upon? So you see now how it is important to find out the main idea. So much so that I would say when you're preparing in these 3 months, in these few days that we are left with before the CAT exam, no matter what you are reading, let's say you are reading an article or just a paragraph of the editorial, make it a habit of finding out the main idea every time you read it. To simplify it, can you write down that passage in like 2 to 3 lines or talk about what was the main thing in the passage in just 2 to 3 lines? That will be your main idea. If you follow this practice every time you are reading, 1, you will be more attentive, 2, you will be critically analyzing the information given over there. Second question type is inference. Inference is a type of hidden conclusion. So it's just like a conclusion, it's just that it's not explicitly given over there in the passage. So if I tell you a story or I show you some pictures, I show you a question or a story, let's say, and I ask you, what did you deduce from the passage? That will be the inference or the hidden conclusion that you've drawn on the basis of your understanding of given facts. Though the inference is hidden conclusion, but it will strictly rely on the given facts in the passage. You cannot bring in any external information or go with any external far-fetched kind of option and say ki, ma'am, anyways it's hidden, right? It's unstated. So why is this not the answer? If it doesn't stem from the given facts, it cannot be the answer. It should rely on the given fact, but it should be one such kind of information which is not explicitly given in the passage. An additional tip for you to answer the inference question: never go with one such option which is either a direct statement or a restatement of one of the given facts in the passage. How can it be a direct line when inference is anyways hidden conclusion? If it's hidden, it will not be given in the passage. So when you see the option choices, eliminate those choices which are either a direct line or a restatement of one of the facts that has already been given in the passage. Second, eliminate those options which are not at all related to the given passage, and you will be left with one or two or probably three choices. It will become easy for you to guess the inference of the passage. So no worries, we will be doing it with some practice questions as well in today's class. Critical reasoning type of question. Now, I've already told you, mostly these questions will be which of the following sentence can you fit in the passage, which of the following sentence is in line with the passage, which of the following sentence strengthens or adds credence to author's belief. These were all positives, like the strengthening sentences. Then you may have questions like which of the following weakens author's argument, which of the following contradicts the given passage, which of the following undermines the author's belief. So CR question basically tests your understanding that how well have you churned and understood the passage really well. Now when I say strengthening or weakening, it sounds easy, but it may become a little tricky when the statement has a good jargon or good vocabulary like credence, undermines, underscores. So these are some of the words that you should be aware of, and you should be writing down their meaning in your notebooks. Every time you see a question related to critical reasoning, please catch the vocabulary, because the first challenge is to understand the question properly. Only then you should move on to the option choices. Next question type is tone of the passage. Now, there are different tones. Basically, you have to identify if the tone is positive, negative or neutral. Right. After reading the passage, what do you feel mood of the author is? Tone is mood of the author. Do you think he is favoring something, praising something, or is he criticizing something severely? Or do you think he's being neutral here? He is simply giving us information. He is simply giving a narration without showing his opinion, his subjectivity over there. Is he being a third person's perspective, giving you different ideas and leaving it up to you, whatever idea you want to have? But he is not commenting over there. Now, one thing is very clear. Author never states directly that I am going to criticize this thing, I am going to favor this thing. It's up to us that we have to understand from the kind of language that he is using. If it is informative, we all know. If it is descriptive or informative, it's mostly neutral. That's a common sense. If it's narrative, again, it may be neutral. But if you think it is somewhat related to technology, AI, and the consequence it has on public, probably on technology, climate change, he's showing us the severe dangers we are causing to our environment because of the climate change. In a way, we are the agent who has aggravated that. Right? Then you know clearly, oh, he's criticizing something. So you just have to catch the keywords from the passage. If he is using positive kind of adjectives, he's favoring the subject. If he's using negative kind of adjectives, he's definitely against it. There is a subtle criticism in the passage. So once you are done with guessing if the tone is positive, negative or neutral, the second thing is, again, vocabulary. The 4 option choices that are given to you, are you even able to understand the meaning of those words? So let us do some tone related words today. And whenever you are solving any passage, you are giving any mock test and you see a tone question, please write down those words because they may come in your exam as well. And go on writing their meanings. So I am going to write down some of the words of tone. Let's categorize them as positive first of all. So positive tone can be laudatory. Laud is the root word here, which means to praise something. You know the word applauds, right? So laud means positive thing. You're praising something. It can be laudatory, it can be praiseworthy. Next, let us write down some of the negative tone words, or you can say the ones that show criticism. One is the criticism itself. Another word is acerbic tone, bitter tone, sharp tone, caustic tone, acrimonious tone. Now, acerbic you can say is a chemistry jargon. Anything that is bitter or pungent, you call it acerbic. Try to remember these words. They are going to help you greatly in the exam to guess the tone questions. All of these stand for negative tones or criticizing tones. Acrimonious, acerbic, they are same, bitter. Okay, I said pungent, so it can be pungent also. Pungent tone. Aggressive tone. If you think he is, severely criticizing something, then it can be aggressive. It can be, let's say, belligerent. It can be belligerent. It can be bellicose. Belligerent and bellicose are synonyms for aggressive. It can be sharp, caustic, cutting. Cutting tone means again sharp tone. So these are some of the words you can rely on. Pugnacious can be one. Pugnacious comes from pungent or aggressive, you can say. Pugnacious is a person who is almost ready to take up a fight. So if you think author is severely criticizing something, so much so that he is ready to take up a fight, then the tone can be pugnacious as well. So quickly take a screenshot of this or write these words down because they are very important. Then we will write down words for some more tones which has an element of humor in them. Right, so this was the negative category. Third is informative or didactic. So both the tones, informative and didactic, you are simply giving information. The author is simply giving information in the passage. He is describing something at length. So more or less they don't have any positive or negative connotation or context with them. Once you are done with this, we will write some humorous tone as well. Everyone who's attending the live, please send a thumbs up if you are done writing or taking a screenshot of these words. I'll move on to the next question types then. There is no space here. Alright. The fourth can be narrative tone. Narrative is storytelling. You feel the author is narrating something, he is telling you a story, then it can be narrative. Fifth is romantic. Now this romantic isn't the one that we know in Bollywood. Romantic means fantasy, something that is against reality. Imaginary or fantasy type of writing is a romantic writing. You romanticize or you imagine everything in that. So there will be less reality in that. Tone can be romantic as well. Sixth is pedantic. Pedantic is being very fussy about the details. So if you feel author is stressing upon some idea that he believes in with such fine detail, so much so that he's not ready to, listen to any other view, that will be pedantic. Being fussy about the details of the thing that he want to promote through the passage. Or it can be, pedantic and dogmatic. We all know the meaning of the word dogma. Dogma is believing in some kind of principles or laws, you can say, rules. Again, so much so that you won't agree or accept any other point of view. So that is following a dogma. So if you think author is following any such or promoting any such dogma through the writing, it can be dogmatic as well. Seventh is irony. Irony is incongruity between the reality and the things that are shown to you. Now, for example, Mulk Raj Anand has written a novel on a little boy whose name is Coolie. The novel's name is Coolie. The boy's name is Raja. Now actually the boy, he is, I think, orphaned boy, and he's worked as laborer also, a factory laborer. He has worked as a coolie or a beggar also. So that's an irony that the name is Raja of that character, and actually the works that he has been doing. So this is, seventh one is irony. Incongruity between what is shown to you in the passage and you know what the reality is. It's quite opposite to what is being shown. If we are all done with these questions, these type of tones, let us see some more. Okay, I think it's the 8th type, where there is some tinge of humor. It can be sarcastic. So the tone of the passage is sarcastic, which means there is humor, there is a ridicule of something. Author is trying to ridicule something. So sarcasm is using humor. Next is satire. Now even in satire you have ridicule and humor, you have a lot of mockery, a lot of taunting. The only difference between sarcasm and satire is that satire has a purpose. Satire is mostly political or social. You see there is an evil, there is a social evil in the society, and you write opposite of that so as to just shake the readers or the public out of it. You expect there should be some change in this social evil, should be overcome, this political evil should be overcome. To give you an example, Jonathan Swift wrote a poem, A Modest Proposal. The setting is that of industrial England, London. Now at that point of time there was no laws for child education or act against child labor. And people were mostly, middle class or lower middle class, I would say. Most of them were working in factories. They could not feed their children. They could not send them to schools. So a lot of kids were put into factories as laborers and chimney sweeps. Jonathan Swift was, disheartened because of this. So rather than saying that, urging the government or the parents that don't do it with little kids, he wrote this poem, A Modest Proposal, for the parents and the state, that what is the use of these little creatures? Put them as factory laborers, put them as chimney sweeps. Did he actually mean it? He was taunting the state, the governance and the parents, that how can you put these kids as laborers when they have the right to education, and they should be free to grow, to learn, to develop. So this is an example of satire. Satire is a little bit serious because it expects a political change or a social change. Sarcasm is a mere ridicule or fun element in that. I hope these tones are clear to everyone. We have discussed a lot of tone words today. Some will come up in the questions as well. So we'll discuss those as well. Right, next question is title of the passage. Title is that crisp and catchy line, you can say, which introduces you to what you are going to read about. Vocabulary based question, they may pick up a word from the passage and ask you for an antonym or a synonym of that from the options. So though there are bleak chances to get vocabulary question in the CAT exam, because CAT question mostly are CR type, inference type or main idea type. It can be tone also. CAT question will not give you direct question. They will all be based on your understanding of the passage. So it's very unlikely that you can trace a line in the passage to answer the question. Only when you have understood the whole passage, you can answer that. Now we have a passage for practice. Go through this, then I'll read it for you and then we'll discuss the questions. So we have a novel from the subject area of fiction or literature, you can say. On the basis of this, we will do some questions related to CR, tone and inference. Supposedly the most difficult questions they are. Let me quickly read the passage for you. The novel Pride and Prejudice is a tale about the courtship in 19th century England. Elizabeth's first impression of Darcy. So you are introduced about a lot of things. How should your mind work while you are reading a passage? that, okay, he has simply mentioned a novel first of all. Then he goes on to say it's a tale. It can be more or less narrative type. And then he has introduced you to these two characters and what kind of first impression they had of each other. Elizabeth's first impression of Darcy is a completely negative one due to his judgmental description of her upon first seeing her at the ball. Ball is a kind of, you can say, gathering. People used to have, they used to dance, they used to have fun and food, feast kind of a function. So she is tolerable. Now this is quotation of Darcy about the female protagonist Elizabeth. She is tolerable but not handsome enough to tempt me, and I am in no humor at present to give consequence to young ladies who are slighted by other men. So on the basis of this quotation that she overheard, she made a negative impression of Darcy. The first impression of Elizabeth and the reader is that Darcy is arrogant and headstrong. Before these events transpired, Elizabeth's mother, Mrs. Bennet, pointed out Darcy as a candidate for Elizabeth to marry. Mr. Darcy soon drew the attention of the room by his fine, tall, person, handsome features, noble mien, and the repo which was in general circulation within 5 minutes after his entrance, of his having 10,000 a year. Look at this now. Elizabeth's mother already was considering Darcy to be a suitor for her. Why? Because he was tall, he was handsome, his mannerism was good, and he was rich also, affluent. Elizabeth will hear none of it. Now Elizabeth, because she has formed a negative impression of Darcy, she doesn't want to marry him. Considering this spiteful comment she overheard Darcy making about her previously. A major obstacle in the relationship between Elizabeth and Darcy was Mr. Wickham. A new character is mentioned here, who becomes the object of Elizabeth's affection. So eventually she was more affectionate towards this new character, Mr. Wickham, and not Darcy. Upon first meeting each other, Elizabeth finds that there is an extreme amount of tension between Wickham and Darcy as well. After talking to Mr. Wickham, Elizabeth goes into town where she runs into Mr. Darcy, who gives her a letter explaining the true nature of his relationship with Mr. Wickham. In a way, Darcy is trying to defend himself. He's giving reasons that why he has a tension with Mr. Wickham. Do you see now? There are no facts over here. It's simple narration. Such passages are relatively easy. The questions though may be a little tricky. Now, this letter marks the point in the novel where Elizabeth finally begins to like Darcy. Darcy has handed over a letter to Elizabeth explaining that why there is this kind of animosity between Darcy and Mr. Wickham. Darcy tells the real reason for Wickham's disinheritance. Wickham was engaged in problematic relation with Darcy's sister. This makes the beginning of the constructive relationship of Darcy and Elizabeth. Now finally, there is start of the relationship between these two protagonists. The wealth of Mr. Darcy proves to be divider between Darcy and Elizabeth. The difference in social class proves to be a reason for which Darcy seemed to try to purposely self-destruct his relationship, as well as a perfect example. Now, Darcy was very affluent, Elizabeth was not. That became a reason for two of them to not get into a relationship. See how society can play a role in a relationship. Of the influence English social ideals have on the lives of England's high society. The final obstacle in the relationship of Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy is the aunt of Mr. Darcy. Her name is Lady Catherine de Bourgh. Lady Catherine de Bourgh is optimistic that Darcy will marry her daughter. Mr. Darcy is engaged to my daughter. This is her quotation. Lady Catherine's quotation. Lady de Bourgh explains to Elizabeth the family history behind this arranged marriage. From their infancy, they have been intended for each other. Elizabeth, however, decides to choose her own happiness over that of Lady Deborah and replies, "I am marrying your nephew." This final step Elizabeth takes proves to overcome the obstruction in the relationship of Elizabeth and Darcy. Again, this is another example of the customs of the time with the interfamily arranged marriages based on social standing and wealth instead of mutual liking or dislike between two individuals. Now, though the passage was narrative, though there is kind of a summary of a novel, but then it's up to us what kind of critical analysis we have done of the passage. There are a lot of things that are not said explicitly. You have to feel what the author is trying to convey through this story. Let's move on to the question part now. Alright, everyone who's been attending the live, try to answer these questions. Now starts the real game. Question number 1 is, what is the tone of the passage? Let's see who's going to guess the tone of the passage. And yes, I have discussed meaning of all the 4 words. Let's see how much you remember. Tone of this passage, anyone? Is it didactic? Is it pedantic? Is it belligerent or acrimonious? Now I'll show you how to very smartly eliminate choices. Drop in your answers, everyone. Vishal, can you guess the answer for this one? When I told you about the negative tones, if you can recall, belligerent is aggressive, acrimonious is bitter. More or less, they are both same tone. Can the answer be 2 options? No, it cannot be. So when you see synonyms given in the option for the tone question, how can there be 2 answers? You can easily eliminate both of these. Pedantic was being fussy about detail. What kind of detail was the author fussy about here? He wasn't trying to profess or promote something. So it cannot be pedantic. Didactic is informative. This is the right answer. He was giving you just the information in the passage. He was simply giving you the information what all happened between Darcy and Elizabeth. That's it. So the tone should be didactic. Moving on to the next question. What can be inferred from the first meeting between Miss Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy? So I have read the whole passage for you. What can you recall about the first meeting and the first impression? Now this is inference question. Answer for which you will not find directly. Only if you understood the first part of the passage you can answer it. The Arctic first encounter between Elizabeth and Darcy leaves the reader more than doubtful of anything sparking between the two in the future. Is this the answer? Or Elizabeth's pride makes her misjudge Darcy on the basis of poor first impression, and Darcy's prejudice against Elizabeth's poor social standing blinds him for a time to marry her virtues. Now, the second option is a very tricky one, I would say, because the name of the novel is, the story is Pride and Prejudice. A lot of us who are answering this question may fall for this option. But think about the first impression, Elizabeth's pride. What kind of pride did she show in the first impression? Whatever she judged it on the basis of the quotation, or you can say whatever she heard from that person, Darcy. So Elizabeth's pride make her misjudge Darcy on the basis of poor first impression. This I still understand, but can we say that Darcy was prejudiced against Elizabeth's poor background? In the first impression, in the first meeting, he did not even know what kind of background Elizabeth has. This was not mentioned in the passage. When we answer these questions, we have to strictly rely on the given facts. So we can't go with the second one. Some preconceived notions they had about each other might have led Darcy to speak negative about Elizabeth. They did not know each other before this ball meeting. So it was only on the basis of the first impression, you can say, the first face off they had, that he said that she is okay but not too handsome, which means she's not too good looking. So this we cannot go with. It seems highly likely that they will not meet at the end, as Darcy seems to be committed to his values and status. Now this is a misjudged kind of option. What kind of values and status would stop him from marrying her? Right, so answer should be first one. That yes, the first impression was not too good. It was arctic, you can say. There was a tense atmosphere between the two of them. One, because Elizabeth overheard the conversation, and two, because Darcy anyways didn't want to marry any of the prospective ladies, I would say. So he was already a lot irritated that the mothers are coming with a lot of suggestions for the brides. Moving on to the last question. What is the primary purpose? Primary purpose means main idea. What is the primary purpose of the author of the novel? Why did author tell us this story? Why was he narrating, the story to us? What is he trying to convey through this passage? A very nice question. Let us see who's going to answer this. Was his purpose to highlight the social life in 19th century England? Okay, this can be one. Let us see more. To highlight social customs and structures, but at the same time to spin a beautiful tale of finding love in the most unexpected of the places. This too can be our answer. To peep into entangled web of human emotions through writing a story, or to highlight the clash of egos between the old and the new generation. Drop in your answer for this one, everyone. Let us see how much you understood. If he has given you a passage from literature, what did he intend on? Okay, one thing is clear. He was only particularly talking about the English society, and that too of the 19th century. In that particular era, rather than the liking, or you can say the what would I call it, the kind of common ground two people have, or the kind of liking they have for each other, that wasn't considered too important. The society, the societal status, I would say, such kind of matchmaking was more important. So what was he trying to do? He was trying to show us that how there were such social structures and customs which barred the girls and the boys from marrying a partner of their choice out of their own liking. So the right answer, which considers everything, is the second one. The first only talks about that he wanted to highlight the social life of 19th century. If he wanted to highlight the social life of 19th century, he would have given you the other facts as well. But he just took one story and discussed the whole storyline. Do you think that he would give all the space of the passage only to a story for no reason? So he was also intertwining, you can say, he was also narrating a story, a beautiful story of two people, how they encounter each other and how they eventually fall in love with each other. So this is a more complete, a more broad answer. To peep into entangled web of human emotion is a very general one. It's not mentioning the societal pressure that people have on them, especially 19th century England. So it's incomplete and very general. To highlight the clash of egos between the old and the new generation. As such, there was no clash between the egos. They did not have any animosity, the new generation and the old generation. It's just that they felt it their prerogative, I would say, the elders, that we should be guiding these young ones, or doing the matchmaking thing for them. But eventually they see themselves, Darcy and Elizabeth, and they take the essential step of marrying each other. So this is how you get inference, main idea and tone type of questions. After a few lives, I'll be coming up with a new topic in the next live. After a break, we will take up some more questions of reading comprehension. So try to do these questions on your own and give 1.5 hours to reading daily, which should be a combination of reading articles and editorials and solving some reading comprehension, because At the end of the day, the game is about the, I would say, how many questions you get correct. So try to do that. Your accuracy is something that should be tested through your daily practice. That is all for today. We will come up with one more important topic relevant to your MBA entrance exam. Stay tuned if you want to learn more and learn it in an easy way. Thank you. Keep smiling. Keep shining.